Well, good morning. I certainly want to join in the welcome of everyone here this morning. If you're here among us in our presence, or if you're tuning in through live stream, and especially if you're visiting with us, we're especially glad that you're here and among us and get to be a part of this hour of praise and devotion to the God whose love is so amazing and is so divine that it demands, it compels us to give our soul, our life, our all. So we're thankful to be together this morning. One of my favorite times of the year is around the start of Thanksgiving week through the start of the new year. And there are all kinds of reasons why that is, and it may be many reasons why it's your favorite time of the year too. But I love this time of year because it's a time when people get to be with family. They get to reunite with friends. They get to be around a family table and share a meal together and visit with one another. And I'm excited toward the end of this week, I'll get to go home to Houston to be with my family. But one of the things that I've noticed recently for me is that it's become increasingly difficult for me to leave here. It's become increasingly difficult for me to step away and to go to another place. And it's not that I don't enjoy, certainly it's not that I don't enjoy being home or that I don't love going to other places. But I find it increasingly the case that I miss being here. And I miss being a part of the work here, and I miss being a part of the family here. And what that tells me, and what I hope that tells you as well, is it feels like family. It feels like family. Through the interactions I've had with you as the time has gone on, it's become more and more the case that it feels like family. And I hope that's true for you this morning. If you've been here for any time, if you've been a part of Lost River for any time, I hope that you find that to be the case, that it feels like family. And that if you're here visiting for the first time, I hope that in some way that what we do this morning and the interactions that you have with the people here, that you can say the same, that it feels like family. But over the past few weeks, we've been in a short series on what we've entitled Live Thankful. Live thankful. And the phrase that we've been ascribing to and that we are desiring to make true of us is to become noticeably less critical and measurably more grateful. Noticeably less critical and measurably more grateful. And the first lesson, we tackled the first part of that statement. The way that we become noticeably less critical is we stop complaining. And so we had the wristband challenge. And I hope that for you, as it was for me, it created an awareness to just how often I complain or would catch me when I was about to complain. And I hope that's continued to be the case, that over these weeks you've become, at least to yourself and hopefully to the people around you, noticeably less critical. But the second part of that statement raises a question. How do we become measurably more grateful? How do you measure gratefulness? And one of the ways that we do that is exactly what we've done this morning and exactly what we talked about last week. We not only stop complaining, but we start praising. We start praising God for the things that He has given to us, for the abundance of blessings that He has showered upon us. Like the song that we sing, with every blessing that He pours out, we turn that back to praise, to His glory, and to His name. We start praising. But the way that we become measurably more grateful is not just in our gratitude toward God, but in our gratitude toward His people, toward one another. And it reminds me of something that Paul said to the Philippians in Philippians chapter 1. He says, speaking of them, I thank my God in all remembrance of you, always offering prayer with joy in my every prayer for you all. That's the goal, that our gratitude not only flows upward to God, but that it flows out to one another And we become a people who are immersed with thanksgiving and gratitude toward God and toward each other. And to help us think along those lines this morning, I want to start by asking you this. What is the best gift you've ever given? What's the best gift you've ever given? Maybe it was for a birthday present or a Christmas gift, or maybe it had nothing to do with that at all. Maybe it was just some gift that you gave to somebody just out of your own kindness of your heart. But whatever that gift was, whatever it is that comes to mind, I want you to imagine that you searched all over town. You went to every store searching for just the right thing, or you scrolled for hours and hours online, which that's supposed to make it easier. I feel like that just makes it more difficult for me because there's more options. So I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, trying to find just the right thing, trying to find just the right gift that I think will fit this person perfectly. And you spend all this time and you finally find that gift in the store, or you finally find just the right thing online, and it gets in the mail, and you are so excited. And so you start to package it up just right. You wrap it in the wrapping paper and you tie a bow around it, which is not describing my gifts at all. You know what gift I've given because it's the one that looks the worst wrapped under the tree. But you spend your time wrapping it up just the right way, and you just can't wait for them to open it. You are so excited for them to open this gift that you poured all this time and effort and energy into, and you just know that they're gonna love it. And as they open that gift, as they open your gift, how does that make you feel? If they were grateful, it's probably one of the best feelings in the world. There's nothing like having someone open a gift and to see their face light up and they are excited and they're overwhelmed with gratitude, and they come over and they give you a huge hug to express their excitement to the point that's like, okay, I get it, you're thankful, maybe that's enough. But they're overwhelmed with this excitement and gratitude, and there's few feelings in the world like that. To know that you gave someone a gift and it was received with that overwhelming joy and gratitude. But on the other hand, if they opened it and they were ungrateful, well, that's probably one of the worst feelings in the world. There are few feelings worse than having spent all that time and all that effort and all that energy to find just the right thing, and then to see them open it and that reaction isn't there. And it makes you feel unnoticed. It makes you feel forgotten. It makes you feel surprised that why, what, was it not the right thing? Did I not give them the right gift? I'll take it back and get something better. And it makes you feel taken for granted. It's one of the worst feelings in the world. But here's my guess. My guess is that none of those people, if you've had an experience like that, none of those people who seem to you to be ungrateful, my guess would be that none of them were actually ungrateful. And I know that because I'm not ungrateful. And you know that because you're not ungrateful either. None of us are ungrateful, or at least we don't think we are, right? In fact, when someone accuses you of being ungrateful, you get defensive, right? You get frustrated and you start to think, well, why would you think that? And the reason that we get defensive is because it feels like they're accusing you of not feeling something. They're accusing you of not feeling grateful. And so we think, we get defensive and we think, well, I'm not ungrateful, I'm not unthankful or unappreciative of you or the gift that you gave to me. How could you know how I feel? And of course the answer is, well, they don't know how you feel. They don't know how you feel. And that's the problem, right? The problem is, we could say it this way, the problem is that unexpressed gratitude is incomplete gratitude. Unexpressed gratitude is incomplete gratitude. We could think of gratitude as kind of like a circle. And the idea is that it would come full circle. But what happens is we receive a gift and we feel thankful, and we think that that's the end of the loop, that that's the end of the cycle. And so someone gives you something, maybe it's a gift, maybe it's their time, maybe it's their effort or energy or their care, some act of service, but they do something for you, they give something to you, and because you feel that, because you feel grateful and you receive it with thanksgiving, you think that the cycle is complete. But of course, we know in our experience that that's not really the case. That something is missing, that something isn't quite right, that there is a gap in the circle of gratitude. And on the receiving end, we feel appreciative. We feel thankful and great, and like everything is just fine about the relationship. But they feel unnoticed, and they feel unappreciated, and they feel taken for granted. And in fact, to them, it feels like you just have these expectations for them. That you're just assuming that they would do all these things for you as if it's just their job. You just assume that they would take out the trash, that they would make you dinner, that they would buy you this thing or write you this note or do whatever it is, whether it's a gift or act of service. You just assume that that's their job, that's their role, that's how it feels to that person. Like you just have these expectations for what they'll do for you. And in that, they feel taken for granted because it's incomplete. Unexpressed gratitude is incomplete gratitude. And on the receiving end, again, maybe you didn't think that at all. Maybe you really were grateful. But to them, it feels like ingratitude because there's that gap in the circle. And it's the gap of ingratitude. And I hope that in some way that sounds somewhat ominous because it is. The gap of ingratitude is a relationship killer. It destroys relationships. Nothing will destroy relationships quite like unexpressed gratitude. Whether it's among churches, whether it's among families or friendships, whatever relationships it might be, you see this all the time with sports teams. When somebody feels underappreciated, the relationship collapses. And the people around them may have felt very thankful, but to them it felt like they were taken for granted. And as the gap grows and grows, as that gap of ingratitude gets greater, the more and more threatening to the relationship it is, and the much harder it is to close that gap, for them to believe that you're truly thankful and appreciative. And so how do we close that gap? How do we bring it full circle? Because we don't want to just become measurably more grateful, or we don't just want to feel grateful, but become measurably more grateful, right? Noticeably less critical and measurably more grateful. And so how do we close that gap of ingratitude? Or maybe to put it in a more positive way, how do we live thankful? How do we live thankful? And there's a story in the Gospel of Luke that I think illustrates this idea perfectly. It's found in chapter 17, and it's become one of my favorite moments in the life of Jesus. And I think it opens our eyes to see the full measure of a thankful life. In Luke, he begins the narrative this way. In chapter 17 and verse 11, he says, on the way to Jerusalem, he, speaking of Jesus, was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And this region that he's passing through, it was a desolate place. It was a place that no one really wanted to be. No one really wanted to live in between, an area between two people that don't really get along, the Samaritans and the Jews. And in this area, again, it's a desolate region, but here Jesus comes passing through this area. And no one really knew it at the time, but this would be one of the last times that Jesus would pass by this way. Because Jesus, he is not only on his way to Jerusalem, he is ultimately on his way to the cross, not many days from now. And so Jesus, he passes through, and it says as he entered the village, it says he was met by 10 lepers. He was met by 10 lepers, and these are not the town greeters that you would want to put at the forefront. These are not the kind of people that you would want to put as your door greeters welcoming you into the city. And maybe you know something about leprosy, but it's hard to imagine a disease more debilitating and devastating than this. In some ways, they were living, but they weren't really alive. They were kind of stuck between living and dead. You could think of them as kind of the living dead. In fact, one Bible dictionary defines it this way, or describes it this way. They say that it begins with specks on the eyelids, and then on the palms, gradually spreading over the body, bleaching the hair white, crusting the affected parts with white scales and causing terrible sores and swellings. From the skin, the disease eats inward to the bones, rotting the whole body. And if that doesn't make you uncomfortable, that doesn't make you squirm a little bit, then we might need to read it again. It's hard to imagine anything worse than that, any worse physical condition, any worse existence to live with than this. And obviously the physical effects of this disease would have been absolutely devastating and awful to live with, but perhaps even worse than that is that they were viewed by society and treated by society as subhuman. They were forced to live outside of the city in their own isolated communities. And as they were there, apart from the rest of society, they would watch everyone get to live the life that they would never get to live. And every day they're on the outside, and they can look into a city and see it flowing with life and energy, and people greeting loved ones as they come into the town. But they sit in their isolated communities while they watch people live the life that they will never get to live. And as people passed by, they were supposed to cover their face, and they were to yell, "Unclean, unclean," as people would come by to warn them about what they were, to warn them that they were approaching a leper. But this time, for these 10 lepers, it was different. Verse 13, it says that when they saw Jesus, they stood at a distance, which is good. You don't want a leper coming near you, but they stood at a distance. And the difference is that this time they lifted up their voices and they said, not unclean, unclean, but they cried out to Jesus, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." And they cry out to the one that they think can bring them the healing. And maybe it was that Jesus had passed by this way before. Maybe it was just that they heard rumors about this man who could perform miracles, who was able to heal people who were just like themselves. But they cry out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." And verse 14 says, when Jesus saw these 10 lepers covered in sores and these white scales with this debilitating disease, when Jesus saw them, he said to them, "Go." A word that they probably heard thousands and thousands of times before. Go. But this time Jesus says, not go away, not go bother someone else, not go back to living in your isolated communities among the living dead. This time Jesus says, go and show yourselves to the priests. Go and show yourself to the priests. And this, I imagine, would have been shocking to them. Because to go and show yourself to the priest, well, that means that you would be going to show them that you're cleansed, that you're healed, that you're changed. It would be to get the all clear to go back into society, to get to live a normal life again. The only problem was that as they looked down, their hands were still covered in those sores. As they looked down, they were still 10 lepers. And Jesus, what he's getting at is that he wants them to do exactly a phrase that we use often. He wants them to quite literally walk by faith. He has in mind that they would be healed on the way. It would literally take a walk of faith for them to be healed. And these 10 lepers realizing this, I can see the first guy start to kind of step away. And then another one follows after that. And then the rest of them follow and they start heading toward the priest. And as they went, something amazing happened. It says, as they went, they were cleansed. As they went, they were cleansed. Can you imagine that moment? Like I imagine many of you, I've read this story many times, I've heard this story many times, but this week as I read back through it, I got chills as I thought about just what this would have meant for them. Because I imagine that as they looked down at those hands that were once rotting to the bone and scaly all over, as they looked down at these hands that have now been made clean and pure, I imagine their mind was just flooded with so many thoughts. They get to embrace friends that they haven't seen in years. They get to go back into the village, back into the synagogue, and into a normal life without the glances and the stares and the looks of other people, but except for ones of wonder and amazement at what had happened. They get to work with those hands again without pain or harm. And they get to hug their loved ones and hold them in their arms and sit around a table and share a meal with family again. And they get back their life from the dead. And so many things must have gone through their mind in that moment that they realized that they were healed. And so in this amazing moment, verse 15 says that then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, when he saw that he was changed and cleansed and could go back to living the life that was taken from him, when he saw that he was healed, he turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks for what he'd done. He fell at Jesus' feet, giving him the thanks. And with that, the circle was complete. He went back to the one who had helped him to move forward. He was measurably more grateful. And as Luke writes about this, he then includes this little detail. He says, now he, the one who came back, the one who fell at Jesus' feet in praise and thanksgiving, now he was a Samaritan. And maybe that seems like an odd detail to include. Maybe that seems relatively unimportant or insignificant. But to Luke, this is very important. Because we sometimes think of Luke as the gospel of the outcast. And this is proving more and more so to be the case in the life of this Samaritan. Because the Samaritans were another subset of outcasts like the lepers. John talks about how in Jesus' interaction with the woman at the well, how the Jews had no dealings with the Samaritans, and that's putting it lightly. There was tension, there was animosity, there was violence between these two groups of Jews and Samaritans. And so it makes this man a double outsider, a Samaritan leper. And so Luke, he includes this detail, he brings this up because all throughout his gospel, it is the outsider. It is the one who is outside, the one who is in the most need, who always expresses the most gratitude. And nothing could prove that point more perfectly than a leper who was a Samaritan. And in contrast to this Samaritan leper comes verse 17. Then Jesus answered. As this man is laying at his feet, praising him and thanking him for this healing and this cleansing power, Jesus answered him, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" See, Jesus is just as shocked and surprised as we are when people don't come back and express gratitude and thankfulness to us. And these 10 lepers, he asked the question, where are the other 9? As this one comes back, he asks the question, where are the 9? And by that point, who knows where they were? Maybe they had already reached the priest and gotten the all clear. Maybe they were already on their way to embrace their loved ones and to see their family and their friends again. But wherever they were at this point, I imagine if we tracked them down and we asked them about this, we asked them why didn't they go back or whether or not they were truly grateful, they would say, well, of course we were grateful. We've never been more thankful in our life. There's no way that we could truly express to you how grateful we are in this moment. But the problem is, of course, that they have stopped at the point of only feeling grateful. That circle of gratitude is incomplete. Emotionally, they felt thankful, but they never went back. They never went back to thank the one who helped them to move forward. And because of that, the circle was incomplete. But turning to the one leper, turning to the one who came back, turning to this Samaritan leper, this double outsider who came back to give thanks and praise to him, he says to him, "Rise and go." And of course, he had already said this to him once before, "Rise and go and show yourself to the priest," but this time he has no reason to return. That circle of gratitude is complete. And so he says, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well." Rise and go, your faith has made you well. And so the Samaritan leper went his way to be cleansed forever. But Jesus, he went his way to Jerusalem and to the cross so that he could bring that same cleansing to all of us. And what we find is that the story of this Samaritan leper is our story. Just like the leper, we were among the living dead, that we were outside and separated from God and without any hope of changing our fate, of changing our destiny, until he came to us. Until he passed through our way, until he went out of his way to seek and to find us. And he made us alive again. And there is nothing to be more grateful for than that. It is a gift that is so out of this world that it changes everything in our world. And it is the whole foundation and the whole motivation for a thankful life. Jesus, the Master, who had mercy on us. But before we go, I think there are just a few things that this story tells us about what it means to live thankful. And I think it starts with this, that expression, not emotion, is the measure of a thankful life. Expression, not emotion, is the measure of a thankful life. And this is what we have been talking around this whole time. But there, like the 9 lepers, we might feel thankful. We might feel like we are filled up with gratitude and thankfulness for what other people have done for us. But how well do they know that? How well do they know how thankful you are for them? Because while you probably feel grateful, they might feel unappreciated. They might feel unnoticed. They might feel taken for granted. Because unexpressed gratitude is incomplete gratitude. It leaves a gap in that circle. It leaves a void in the relationship. And few things hurt relationships, few things hurt churches, few things hurt family more than unexpressed gratitude. But when we become measurably more grateful, when people experience the gratitude that we feel in our heart, it brings that circle to completion. And so it's expression, not emotion, that is the measure of a thankful life. But the other thing that leads into is this, to go back to the one who helped you move forward. Go back to the one who helped you to move forward. Now, it's unlikely that anyone has done for us what Jesus did for the 10 lepers. But who has helped you move forward? Who has helped you move forward in life? Who has helped you become what you are today? Or who has helped get you to where you are today? And if you have any trouble thinking of who to thank for that, although I imagine people immediately come to our mind, but if you have any trouble with that, maybe start with the people closest to you. Because isn't it true that the people who feel the most taken for granted are often the people who are closest to us? So start with the people closest to you. Maybe it's your parents. Maybe you think about what your parents have done, how they have poured into you all of their effort and time and resources to make you into what you are today. But you realize that, well, maybe I haven't shown the appreciation that I ought to. Maybe I've kind of taken for granted some of the good and some of the amazing things that they have provided for me. So maybe it's parents, or maybe it's your kids. You think of the source of joy that they have brought to your life and the things that they have taught you. And you realize that, well, maybe some of the responsibilities and the tasks that I've laid out, I've started to think of them as merely chores to do. And I forget that I am grateful for them, or I forget to express that gratitude to them. Or maybe this morning it's somebody who's in this room. It's a friend who's just down the row, or a mentor who's across the room. And when you think of that person, when you think of all that they've done for you, they've helped you through trials, they've counseled you through difficult times. And maybe you realize that you just haven't said or expressed thank you enough. And you think of that person in this room and you are overwhelmed with gratitude. And so let that overflow. Let that come out in an expression of thanks to the one who helped you move forward. Or maybe it's someone who's outside of this room. Maybe it's somebody that you'll see later this week around a family table. Maybe it's a teacher or a coach who has helped mentor you in some way. And maybe the list is starting to get longer and longer, but that's the point. We have so many people to whom we should express our overwhelming gratitude for. There are so many people who have helped us to move forward. And so either in person or by phone or text or card, in whatever way you can, in the most meaningful way that you can think of, let them know just how grateful you are. Go back and thank the one who's helped you to move forward. And then the last thing is this, and this is the last challenge of the Live Thankful series. And for this one, I don't have a wristband challenge for the week, although a couple people came up to me and they said I should just make the most complicated thing up just to see if anyone can follow it. Maybe we can think of something afterwards. But this is the last challenge in the Live Thankful series. Don't let anyone out-grateful you this week. Don't let anyone out-grateful you this week. There were 10 lepers who were cleansed and healed and changed, but only one came back. And I don't know about you, but I want to be the one. I want to be the person who my friends and my family and the people around me don't have to guess how thankful and appreciative of them that I am. I don't want them to have to guess whether or not I really value them and I really appreciate who they are and am grateful for the things that they have done for me. I don't want people to doubt that. I want people to know just how grateful I am. And so, like Paul says to the churches of Rome, he talks about outdoing one another and showing honor. This week, outdo one another in showing thankfulness. Outdo one another in expressing gratitude, not by some fake or maybe even some awkward way, although it might feel awkward if we're not used to doing that in our friendships, in our families, but in the most sincere and meaningful way that you can. Don't let anyone out-grateful you this week. And don't just be measurably more grateful, but immeasurably more grateful, unusually more grateful in the effort to live thankful. And let it be the start of an increasingly grateful life. Because after this series, and I hope that you will agree with me that there is no better way to live than to live thankful. If you're here this morning and you are in need spiritually, if there's something that we can do for you, if there's any way that we can assist you, if you want to be washed and cleansed in the waters of baptism and united with Christ to live that new life, then we ask that you come and you make that known either as we stand and sing or to one of us individually. If we can help you in that way, please let us know. Or if we can help you in some other way, if you need the arms of the people of this family wrapped around you in prayer and encouragement, if there's anything that we can do, we hope that you'll come now as we stand and sing.